The ashram was open only on the weekends, so we would come out Friday night, driving Swamiji and Guruji and our son, and then on Sunday night come back. Early on, I was given the name of Mother of the Ashram. So if I were Mother of the Ashram, I was only in my 30s, then he had to be the grandfather of the ashram. My memories of him were mostly of him smiling and laughing, because when he was with Sri Brahmananda, then Dr. Mishra, they carried on in Hindi, and they usually ended up in total laughter. Guruji, after the program of Vedantic readings and chanting, Guruji would turn over the latter part of the evening to Swamiji. And he would try to caution him. And he'd say, Swamiji, only 15 minutes remaining. At most 20 minutes, Swamiji. And Swamiji would look at him very sincerely and say, I know people need rest, it is late. I will do a little bit chanting. But it was to no avail, because once Swamiji went into that divine chanting, the bhakti chanting, he lost all sense of time and space every time he chanted. And it was seldom that it was less than an hour. And Guruji knew it. It was his joke with Swami Bhaktivedanta. He was serious only when he was chanting or talking about Krishna consciousness. But when he was relating to people, and certainly relating to Guruji, his face would light up. He had a radiance because he was happy. When Swamiji was happy, it showed. He, I guess because he did a lot of traveling on his own, had become self-sufficient in the kitchen. And he also loved, absolutely loved, to make meals for Guruji. And he would make a lot of food. So we knew when Swamiji was cooking that he could serve about 20 people, although he was cooking mainly for Guruji. And we would gather around as he was cooking. We wanted to learn from him what he was doing. So we would ask him questions, and he wouldn't answer because he'd be totally absorbed in his moment-to-moment activity. And although we were in a happy mood because we were anticipating a lovely meal and being with the two of them, he just remained serious until the last morsel was being finished. And he was just one-pointed in everything he did. I always felt about him he was a deeply serious man, serious about life. He never talked about his past, his personal life. I did ask him once or twice, question here and there, and he waved it away. He said, not important. That's not important. And then I began to feel it wasn't important. What was important was what he was doing now. There's only once when he touched me so much, I asked if I could hug him. He said something like, why not? Because nobody touched him usually. Guruji did. He would put his arm around him. But this was after I knew him for a while. But it was the Indian way of hugging. You know, somehow they managed to hug you and be miles apart in the hug. But at the same time, although the bodies were kept apart, it's only really the shoulders that come together. It's Indian style. But I felt Swamiji's love. He was a tender man, he was a caring man, and an innocent man. And in the company of innocency, you relax completely. And so I was always relaxed with Swami Bhaktivedanta.
That's when I decided I wanted to get into film, and when I came back to America, I took 2 courses at Columbia, and then I was lucky enough to get a job with Leacock Pennybaker. who were the preeminent cinema verite documentarians. And there I learned to edit, to take sound, and this film that we're talking about was my first venture as a cameraman. This was entirely on our own, and we selected this because this was a movement that was different. I also was touched by, in a sense, their naivete. One of the people, I remember asking him how he felt. He said, "Oh, this is the most wonderful thing. I am so moved. I want to devote my entire life to this." I said, "How long have you been involved?" He said, "Since yesterday."
We went to the storefront, Matchless Gifts, and I've always been so taken with that sign. I can still remember it. It was beautifully done, so artistic, saying Matchless Gifts, you know, wonderful colors and swirls and everything. So we entered. It was quite a simple room, and they were eating on the floor. And I don't remember any women being among that first group. My feeling about the Swami is that I think he was in some kind of a state, and I think that perhaps he passed something to us in that interview. But at the same time, I was having a very good time. I actually thought we were onto something big. You know, I have a journalist instinct, but I also have it sounds terrible, a spiritual instinct. You know, after all, this was a very small little room. And the Swami was interviewed by us in the back, in a smaller little room with a curtain over it. So that's, to me, that's where it started. Now, maybe it started before in someplace else, but amazing, we were there. And for me, that's very significant.
Hayagriva first ran into Prabhupada on the street at Bowery, and Prabhupada invited him to come and attend his class that he was holding at 26 Second Avenue. So he came back to the apartment and told me, and so the next night we both went to hear Prabhupada at 26 Second Avenue. And I was very attracted to Prabhupada right from the start. His message rang a bell, and his voice, when he quoted the Sanskrit, it was just like music to me. At any rate, I very quickly became Prabhupada's assistant, and we would cook together for all the people that would come to share Prabhupada's lunch. Everything was put on Prabhupada's plate. And then from Prabhupada's plate, he would distribute chapatis and rice and dal and everything to 10, 15 people that gathered there. And there was always enough. Everyone was always full. We cooked the prasadam in his apartment kitchen, and we served it in his bedroom. We all sat around in a circle on the floor. He had no furniture. The thing that attracted me most to Prabhupada was his certainty. He didn't say, maybe this is the truth, or my opinion is. He wasn't like the professors I knew at Columbia. He spoke with finality. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita such and such, this is the way it is. And he was sure.
I was in a very desperate state. I was brought up middle class, Brooklyn Jewish TV dinner kind of background, kind of pampered, I guess. And here I was out in the streets in a dangerous part of town with no money and affected by LSD and my own unbalanced mind. And so I came to Prabhupada to ask him, rather than asking him, you know, how could I somehow become more stable or some normal approach to my problem, I was just thinking of one thing. And I asked Swamiji, I told him, I work hard all day long. I'm like you. I'm also spreading the word, you know, I'm also speaking to the people. And I